What's going on, NFL fans? Welcome back to the J All Day channel. In today's episode, we're going to do another breakdown for Week 1 games. I'm doing a whole series where I'm going to break down every single NFL game leading up into Week 1. Today, we have the Arizona Cardinals traveling to the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are currently 7-point favorites. Over-under is about 48 to 48.5 right now, depending on what sports books you check out. We're going to look at this game in totality, right? Then we're going to break down these teams' draft picks. We're going to break down the free agent signings. We're going to break down everything you need to know to make the best picks for this game and see if your favorite team, either the Arizona Cardinals or the Buffalo Bills, is going to take it Week 1. Let's get into it. Arizona is on the road traveling to the Buffalo Bills. The biggest strength for the Arizona Cardinals last year, they had the most 200 rushing yard games in the NFL. They had 4 of them. James Conner was great, over an 88 PFF grade last year. He was incredible, but they have one of the worst offensive lines in the entire NFL, and the defense is still very, very suspect. That's why this team went 4-13 last year. On the other side of the ball, the Buffalo Bills, 11-6. They still cannot get over the Patrick Mahomes hump. They lost a lot of veterans in free agency and trades. No more Stephon Diggs. The defense kind of got annihilated a little bit. A lot of these high-priced veterans got their bus ticket out of town. So can Josh Allen pull a Tom Brady and take a very mediocre wide receiver core and turn them into bona fide superstars? We'll have to see. The first thing I want to talk about with each one of these teams is their draft picks. Real quick, NFL fans, before we get into these draft picks, if you could do me a huge favor, if you like my content, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button. It really helps us get into the algorithm. All right, let's get into some draft picks. We're in year 2 of Jonathan Gannon being the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. He was the former defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. And since he left, their defense has took a serious nosedive. So I want to see this defense take a step forward. The Arizona Cardinals had 12 draft picks this year. Yeah, that's right, 12. They took 6 offensive players and 6 defensive players. In the first round, they took bona fide, soon-to-be superstar, in my opinion, Marvin Harrison Jr., 6'3", 209 pounds. He's one of the best players in this draft class, man. He's an incredible guy. He's got really good hands, strong point of catch. He runs pretty decent routes for the most part. Very good player. ESPN is comping him to a guy like A.J. Green. We'll have to see if Kyler Murray can utilize this skill set with Marvin Harrison Jr. Really talented player, guys. I love him. And then at the end of the first round, they went Darius Robinson, the edge defender from Missouri, 88 overall grade. Maybe a bit of an overdraft there, but they need some edge help. They need a guy who can get to the passer, man. This defense was really, really bad last year. They only had 3 guys with a PFF grade over 68, so this defense needs some help. And they addressed that with the second round pick, number 11 in the second round, Max Melton, the cornerback from Rutgers. Pretty good player, 5'11", 187. I wish he was a little bit bigger. I think they're giving him some weight there too. He's a thin guy, but he's a really good player, right? Just solid. The Cardinals cut Marco Wilson in December, and no corner had more than 1 interception last year. Melton is a playmaker who grades as a day 1 starter, right? So he's going to be an impact player, hopefully for the Arizona Cardinals. Another pick I really like was Trey Benson from Florida State, the running back. I really liked him when I was scouting running backs in the draft process. He's got really good size, 6 foot, 216. I just think he's a really quality player. Trey Benson and James Conner, who's getting a little bit older, it's a great compliment to what they're doing with James Conner. All right, the next 2 picks in the third round, they went back-to-back players from Illinois. I absolutely love the pick, Isaiah Adams from Illinois. Pretty solid player, 6'4", 315, very good size for the tackle position. But this pick I absolutely hated. Tip Raymond, 6'5", 271 in the third round. They already have a really good tight end in Trey McBride, who was like in the top 7 in every category in targets, receptions, yards. He's a very talented player. So I think this was a horrible pick in the third round, guys. There was a lot of really good players on the board at this point. Pick 18 in the third round. I hate this pick. But then I did like Elijah Jones, another corner from Boston College. And then the rest of the picks, nothing really. I'm like, oh man, he's going to be an impact player. I do like Christian Jones from Texas. I thought he's a pretty good player. For a fifth round pick to get a 75 grade, you got to like it. 6'5", 305. He even has the ability to swing into guard. I like that pick as well. But man, why would you pick another tight end in the third round? This is just Arizona Cardinals doing dumb shit like they always do. I absolutely hated this pick. If I'm going to grade this overall draft, it's probably like in the B- range for me. I like Max Melton. He's a little undersized at the cornerback position, but I do love Trey Benson. I like Adams and the other tackle Jones that they got. But I hate that third round pick. 18th overall in the third round. There's so much talent left on the board. You're going to go with another tight end. That's not going to really play at all because you already have McBride, who's like a top 8, top 6 tight end in the entire NFL pick. All right, now let's move on to the Buffalo Bills draft. All right, the Buffalo Bills traded back in the first round to acquire some more picks. I understand that because a lot of big-time free agents walk, so they want to bring as many guys into the room as they can. Keon Coleman is going to be a really good player, but they're going to ask him to do a lot in year one, right? Josh Allen doesn't have a bona fide number 1 wide receiver, but at 6'3", 213 pounds, the dude is a dog. Keon Coleman is a great player. To get him in the second round is a solid pick. And then Cole Bishop, I really liked him in the draft process. He was one of the top safeties that I scouted, 6'2", 206. He's got good size, man. And with the age and health of safeties Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer leading to the reset at the safety position in Buffalo this offseason, it was time to add youth to the mix, and they got just that with Cole Bishop. He's a really good player. Then they went D-tackle, then running back. I like Ray Davis from Kentucky. I think he can definitely contribute to this offense. And I really like the center pick, Van Pran Granger from Georgia. I thought this was a really good value pick, 6'4", 300 pounds. In the 5th round, that's a solid pick, man. They had 3 5th-round picks. They went linebacker, then Javon Solomon. Yo, this dude from Troy is an absolute G. I love this pick. He had like a million sacks in college. I love Javon Solomon. And then they went Grable from offensive tackle, Hardy, the cornerback from Penn State, and then Clayton, the offensive guard from England, right? So they brought in some offensive line help, some edge, D-tackle. They went with the trenches and safety position, and then wide receiver Keon Coleman. We'll see how that works out for them. I like this draft. I don't necessarily love it. I think it's in that B- range as well. There were some really good players on the board when they traded back, but I understand why they did it. We'll have to see how these picks play out over the next couple of years. Most of their picks are 5th, 6th, and 7th round picks. You know what I mean? Like 3 5th-round picks, 2 6th-round picks, and a 7th-round pick. A lot of these 5th, 6th, and 7th-round picks don't necessarily pan out. So we'll have to see how that works out for the Bills. I think both these teams B- grade. Now let's talk about the Buffalo Bills offseason. Gabe Davis, now with the Jaguars. Stephon Diggs, traded to the Houston Texans. They didn't get a lot of value for him either, guys. Other players that moved on, Dane Jackson, Leonard Floyd, Pua Ford, Tyrell Dodson. Not the best offseason. I'm not a huge fan of the Buffalo Bills general manager, Brandon Beane. I think he kind of sucks, man. When you get to this point where you have all these older, high-priced players and then you got to cut them all so you just can get under the cap, I don't think he's doing a really good job. You have Josh Allen. You have a top 3, top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And they're not getting any closer to beating some of these top teams in the AFC, in my opinion. Their roster is definitely not better than it was last year. And I think a lot of teams in the AFC got a lot better, man. The Browns are really good. The Texans are really good. And then on the West side, we have Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Raiders are going to be a lot better. I think the Steelers are going to be good again as well. I just don't know how good this Buffalo Bills team is going to be next year. I think the AFC East is completely up for grabs. The Jets have one of the best defenses in the NFL, and then the Dolphins have that high-powered offense. So we'll have to see how this kind of shakes out. They added and re-signed no real players where I'm like, oh, they're going to make an immediate impact. Only 2 players in the top 100, Daquan Jones, the interior defensive lineman, and Curtis Samuel, who's just meh. I mean, Mac Hollins is just not going to be a guy who's going to move the needle for you guys. Micah Hyde is still a free agent. The team got really old all at once and they had bloated salaries, so their GM had to cut all these guys. There's no real veteran presence in this locker room anymore besides Josh Allen. I definitely think this roster has gotten considerably worse. They are well coached, so that could be a benefit. And when you have Josh Allen, you could always win games. But remember, last year the Bills got off to a really, really slow start with all those vets. Could be that kind of same situation this year, right? And Arizona is a young, hungry team, so it'll be very fun to watch. Let's move on to the Arizona Cardinals offseason. The Arizona Cardinals had a pretty pedestrian offseason. Marquise Brown, the wide receiver, moved on. And then we have Blind Nichols they re-signed, Evan Brown, Jonah Williams. He's going to play the opposite tackle with Paris Johnson, who's in year 2. So I'm hoping Paris Johnson can take that leap in year 2 and be that cemented left tackle. He played a lot better the second half of the year with over a 70 PFF grade from weeks 10 to 18. So we saw some improvement, right? I think he's going to make a big leap in year 2, and that could be great for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray and this Arizona Cardinals offense, right? They brought in some offensive line help. Nothing to really write home about. This is a young core of players, so we're hoping they can all take a step forward and they can win, 7 to 9 games. I think that's the ceiling for this roster. The next thing I want to do is break down the depth charts of both of these teams. It's an early depth chart that PFF put out, and I'm going to compare offenses and defenses and see where each one of these teams has some advantages and disadvantages and give my prediction on who I think is going to ultimately win this game. All right, NFL fans, we're going to start first with the Buffalo Bills on defense and the Arizona Cardinals on offense. We got Murray and then Connor in the backfield, and Trey Benson's going to be mixed in there a little bit. We got Marvin Harrison Jr. on the outside with Wilson on the other side and George on the slot position. I think Trey McBride is going to have a monster year. I'm calling a 1,000-yard season for Trey McBride this year. He's unbelievably good. Another year in Jonathan Gannon's system is going to have him have a breakout year. And now teams actually have a number 1 wide receiver they have to worry about. He was getting double teamed a lot last year and was still able to move the sticks consistently for the Arizona Cardinals, right? We really need left tackle Paris Johnson Jr. in year 2 to make a leap forward. That 60 grade is not going to get it done. And then Jonah Williams coming over from Cincinnati, another young-ish player. 58.5 grade last year. Not someone you're like, oh, I'm really excited for this new right tackle we have. I want to see them both make a leap forward if this Arizona Cardinals team is going to win over 6 or 7 games, right? Kyler Murray was okay last year, 70 grade for PFF. But unfortunately for the Arizona Cardinals, last year the Buffalo Bills cornerbacks were incredible. Benford and Rasul Douglas, both over 80 grades, one of the better cornerback tandems in the NFL. But if you look at the safety position, 56 and 56 for Rapp and Edwards, it's not the safety position of old for the Buffalo Bills, right? So you can attack them down the seam a little bit with McBride. The linebackers are pretty decent with Milano, Bernard, and Morrow. I like that linebacker core. And the Buffalo Bills also have a pretty good defensive line. Half of the D-line with over 82 grades last year. And Ed Oliver is no slouch in the middle of that defense either, guys. He's a veteran player now, going to be 27 next year. He's a pretty solid player. So they have a pretty good D-line. Slightly above average linebackers and excellent cornerbacks. I think the Arizona Cardinals are probably going to struggle to score points against this defense. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to have a lot of openings down the field with his wide receivers. He's going to have to really utilize McBride and the running game to be able to be competitive against this Buffalo Bills defense. All right, let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals defense. It's one of the worst units in the NFL, in my opinion. Just look at all these grades. Melton, the rookie, starting outside. Murphy Bunning, 57.6 grade. Budda Baker, after that neck injury, he just hasn't been the same at all. And you look at the D-line, terrible, 49. 51. Lopez is pretty good, solid, 65.4. Outside linebackers are okay with Collins and Gardeck. But this is not a great unit by any stretch of the imagination. Only one guy with an 80 grade with a couple 70s mixed in there, but everyone else is in the 40s and 50s. But lucky for the Arizona Cardinals, this offense for the Buffalo Bills is not the greatest either. We got James Cook in the backfield and obviously Josh Allen under center. They have an okay offensive line, pretty solid tackles with Dawkins and Brown. But Keon Coleman's probably going to start on the outside in place of Valdez-Scantling, in my opinion. Then you have Curtis Samuel and Shakir on the outside. I mean, they could be okay, especially against this Arizona Cardinals defense that doesn't really have a lot for you, man. They're not going to really, their D-line is very, very mediocre at best, but we'll have to see. I want to see a big year out of Dalton Kincaid, the tight end. Josh Allen and him really need to get on the same page, right, to kind of take some pressure off these so wide receivers. We'll have to see how Keon Coleman looks. They're asking him to step in and be the number one guy right away. That usually doesn't work out. Usually there's a little bit of a learning curve for wide receivers, especially number one wide receivers going against really talented number one cornerbacks, right? But I do think the Buffalo Bills have an edge on both sides of the ball. Their defense against the Arizona Cardinals offense, and their offense with a slight advantage over the Arizona Cardinals defense. So, who do I ultimately think is going to win this game, and what is my prediction? I think the Buffalo Bills are going to lock up a home win in Week 1 versus the Arizona Cardinals. They got to travel to Buffalo, which is a crazy place to play ball in. I look for the Buffalo Bills to really lean on Josh Allen and his game-winning experience. Get the ball to Kincaid, run the ball up the middle with some Cook, mix in some Keon Coleman, and I think they're going to do just enough to win this game. I think this game is going to be a little closer than people think, and I actually believe that the Arizona Cardinals are going to cover this 7-point spread. But they're not going to win the game. I'm going Buffalo Bills 23-20 over the Arizona Cardinals. I think Jonathan Gannon's going to take a step forward in year 2 as a coach. That's why he's going to keep this game close. But he just doesn't have the talent on this roster to make that leap to beat a team like the Buffalo Bills. I think they'll be better than last year. I think they'll win more games than the 4 they won last year. I'm predicting like 6 or 7 wins, probably more 6 wins for the Arizona Cardinals this year. So if you're a Cardinals fan, you have something to look forward to. Marvin Harrison Jr. and McBride are really talented players, and this offense with Paris Johnson Jr. at left tackle could really take a step forward and surprise some people and win 7 or 8 games. I wouldn't be totally shocked about that. But it's early. There's going to be a learning curve for all these 12 rookies that they drafted. Buffalo Bills win this game 23-20. All right, guys, if you like this kind of NFL content where I break down all these games leading up to Week 1, I do tons of mock drafts. I do a lot of bets. I do survivor pools, fantasy stuff. So if you like this kind of NFL content, please consider subscribing to the channel. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much. Peace.